Hello, I'm Bruce Dickinson and you're watching Chaos TV.
Okay, so what's up everybody? Chaos TV is today here at Hotel Camp in Helsinki, Finland, and we have the honor to talk with Mr. Bruce Dickinson. So first off, hello and welcome to Chaos TV and also welcome to Finland.
Well, thank you very much. Very nice to be here just the day before your Independence Day celebrations.
Yeah.
All very good.
Okay. So you have done 2 signings here in Finland so far, and you obviously just released a book, What Does the Button Do? So in general, what kind of feedback have you gotten from it, and have you been pleased with it?
I'm very pleased with the reaction here. We're doing amazingly well, the book. So I think we're into the 3rd reprint already.
So are you in general the kind of guy who actually follows what media writes about your bands or your books, or do you try to stay away from all the critics?
Well, I don't get much choice about it now because the book's out, so people can write and say what they want about it. So, I don't have much control over it, so I don't worry about it.
Okay, so I think the book, like overall, is quite like brave one, and you talk about like quite close subjects close to you, like for example the cancer. So, how like selective were you when you deciding like what topics are you actually including in the book?
Well, I made the decision that I didn't necessarily need to go and affect other people's lives that much. I had quite enough stuff going on in my own life to make an interesting book. Anybody looking for scandal about loads of other rock stars or all that sort of nonsense is not there. Actually, not really there ever in any case. But the book is, yes, Iron Maiden's obviously a huge chunk of my life, but there's an awful lot of other things in the book as well, which I think people might find, I hope, interesting.
There isn't like much about your family life in it, so was that like a conscious decision that you want to have your personal life separated from the book?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing about it. I write at the end of the book. I actually write an afterword, and I say, look, I made a decision when I started writing the autobiography. What are you going to put in? What are you going to leave out? You can't put everything in. It's 400 pages. So what are you going to put in and what are you going to leave out? I left out 40,000 words anyway, which I wrote. With respect to wives and children and all the rest of it, then it affects their lives in a way which I don't think is necessarily 100% positive. People just sort of gossip about them and talk about them and everything, and they're obviously they're important to me, but they're not necessarily important to the story of the autobiography.
Okay. So speaking about the book, obviously most of rockstar books have like drug, sex, and rock and roll, but you have only drugs and rock and roll. So, and you don't talk a lot about the girls. So, was that something that you decided that this is not for it? Well,
there's not really that much about drugs, to be honest with you. I smoked a bit.
There's something. Yeah.
I smoked a bit of dope when I was at university. Big deal, wow, and really I only put that in there just because I wanted to make the point that I really don't see the point in drugs. They didn't really do anything to a great extent for me, so stopping was pretty easy. I mean, it's not like I was an addict. It's not like I've ever purchased a drug in my life. Actually, I'm the worst guy on the planet because I always used to smoke everybody else's dope, so that was in there really almost just exclusively pretty much to make that point. I mean, and as for the sex bit of it, there is a little bit of sex in it, but not to the point where I'm, describing, how incredible I am in bed. Not, basically because why would you want to do that? Like people don't know what it's like to have sex? Most people have sex, have girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, make love, do whatever.
Yeah.
I can tell you, it's no different. Everything works just the same.
Yeah. And that also happened for you in the 80s, and it's not just something that happened to all of the rest of the bands as well.
Well, no, it's just something that happens to the entire planet, Yeah. So what's different? Why does that have to go in the book? It's just a sort of, it's another kind of rock star narcissist thing.
Yeah.
And that's not this book. I didn't want this to be a confessional about how big my willy is or I mean, all this sort of nonsense. It's so tedious. It's boring, and I think a book should be entertaining. I think it should be a little bit educational, a little bit informative and funny. And I think it should celebrate life.
So in general, compared to writing a solo album to this book, do you find like similarities between the two processes?
No. It's not like writing a solo album. Writing a solo album is writing a solo album. You're creating fiction, with songs, basically. So it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not at all. In fact, writing a book like this is a standalone process, I think, because it's not like writing a fictional book, and it's not even like writing a non-fiction book. A non-fiction book, you can stand back, you make research, you have opinions, but this one, you're actually already in it, So it's a curious hybrid, the autobiography, and you have to be selective about it. You can't put every single thing that you've ever done in your entire life down. I don't know if you ever read any of, when people they keep I don't keep a diary, right?
Yeah.
I never bothered. I couldn't be asked. It's like, really, you expect me to sit down and write what I did every day? Yeah. God almighty, it's boring,
Yeah.
And that's the problem is when I look at people that keep diaries and they publish them.
Yeah.
God, they're boring and tedious. Oh my God, I really, Richard Burton's diaries, right? Yeah. I thought, oh wow, I bet these are, I really learned something. Today I had halibut. It was undercooked, and the wine was disgraceful. However, the bed was nice and comfortable. What?
Who cares?
Who cares? Exactly. And so many autobiographies, I don't read them for that very same reason.
Yeah.
But I occasionally, in the build-up to writing this, went and spent an hour or so just flicking through autobiographies. And the big thing that came across was like, oh my God, who cares? About things. I think I'd like to write an autobiography that might just be a little bit more off the wall, that might be a little bit odd, that people might read it and go, oh, I didn't know that, or that's interesting, or something,
Yeah.
Not just that, another rock star autobiography. Yeah.
So what did, in the end, made you do the decision that you want to write a book about your life? Was it the tongue cancer? You mentioned about writing a book in the early phases already in the book, but where did you actually came up with the idea in the end?
Well, I had all kinds of people chasing me to write a book for sort of 10, 12 years or so. And I never bothered because I knew what was involved. I knew you had to spend a long time doing it, and I thought, I can't be bothered. And then I got the cancer thing, and I got clear of that, and I did the Book of Souls tour. And then at the end of it, or actually sort of after getting clear of cancer, I thought, you know what, this is a really good point to stop a book.
Okay.
Because the problem with an autobiography is when do you stop it? I mean, what, just before you die? I mean, what's the point of writing it?
Yeah.
So you've got to stop it somewhere. And I thought this is the perfect place to stop it. Having just gotten clear of cancer, that's a great place to stop. And then, of course, the start point is easy.
Yeah. I think it actually, sorry to interrupt, I think it ends like quite logically in a way.
Yeah.
In a good phase.
Yeah. Well, it's the beginning of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's a journey. I mean, an autobiography, like a novel, should be a journey from the beginning all the way through. And my editor at HarperCollins, Jack Fogg, was great because he took all my stuff, which was just in sequential order, and started to edit it. And he edited it, in his words, like a novel. And so when we sat down together to do the edit, it took us about 3.5 days to get rid of 40,000 words, which he thought was going to be really difficult. But actually, once I understood what he was trying to achieve, we were both, cutting like crazy, because it became really easy to lose 8-10 pages of one story. Because it was a story, if you didn't know it was there, you didn't know it was gone.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, once I understood what he was after, life was a lot easier.
So you tell in the book that you actually missed a Genesis show because you attended the school like 1 year after the band played in the school.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you that, are there like some bands that you have actually like missed their show that you have actually wanted to see?
Oh yeah, every single band every single band except one who were my biggest influences, I've never seen.
Which band?
Every single one.
Okay.
Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Rainbow, Jethro Tull, never ever seen them.
Is there some specific reason for it?
I was at school.
Okay.
So I was at boarding school.
Okay, was that also a money-related thing
No.
that you couldn't afford going? No.
No, I was at boarding school.
Okay.
And it was as simple as that, and they weren't around, So I had to imagine what it was like. It was a bit like the Marquis de Sade. The Marquis de Sade, for all of his crazy pornographic, crazy writing, never had sex except in his own mind, because he was locked up in jail and he had to write down all his crazy fantasies on toilet paper. This is truth.
Okay.
Right? And the more they locked him up, the more crazy his fantasies became.
Yeah.
And until he became it, in the end, it becomes absurd. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it was a little bit like that with music. I imagined all these people doing all these amazing things on stage in my head, because there were no videos, so there was no footage you could see of people very much. There was only like Top of the Pops or something, and we only had and that was very rare. We were allowed to watch TV, so I imagined everybody in a really sort of kinetic way. People ask me why I run around like I do on stage, and it's because that's how I imagined all my heroes ran around on stage. And when I actually saw them, when they reunited, I was like, you mean they just stand there?
Okay. So you mentioned in the book, obviously, your band Samson, and you had quite a lot of difficulties with that band. So are you actually proud of those times?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I think but we were such a strange band. I mean, we were all over the place in so many ways, but it was a great experience. I mean, I wouldn't have swapped it for the world because I learned a lot. I learned a lot of actually what not to do, but I also got a huge amount from particularly the second album that I did, Shock Tactics. I learned a massive amount about singing from that album, and that really led pretty directly into what I did with Maiden on Number of the Beast, So, and Martin Birch took what arrived and then turned it into what I became subsequently as a vocalist,
So obviously in the book you tell the stories behind your solo albums, and those are actually quite interesting facts that you actually reveal of those. And now you also released, like recently, the box set which includes all those. So is that some kind of like indication that you also plan on doing some solo work in the future, or was those just nice coincidence?
No. I mean, there's half an album of solo stuff sitting on a shelf in Roy's bedroom right now. I just need to go and get some time and go and write some more material. I mean, I was halfway through doing it was actually a whole concept album, which was going to be called If Eternity Should Fail. And If Eternity Should Fail was the title track to my new solo album. And a bit like Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, it got commandeered for Iron Maiden, so if I did do another solo album, which I think I will, I might just stick to my original plan and have that as the title track. I mean, I did write it. It was the first track that I wrote, for it. I'd probably still include that song, but the feel would be slightly different. Not very much though from the Maiden version.
You have said also in the interviews that you actually really enjoyed writing this book, and obviously, as you already mentioned, you have some bits and parts which you had to cut off from this one. So, do you actually feel that there could be another book about your life, or is this enough about that topic?
Wow. Well, there's 40,000 words of stories sloshing around. I'm not sure how you would organize it or how you would put it together. And I'm not even seriously thinking about it at the moment because I'm in the middle of this one right now. It's only been out for couple of months, so we've got a long way to go with this book. It's going to go to all the hardbacks, and it's going to get released in Germany next year, and then in Brazil and Spain and Italy, and all these places. And then there's the paperback's going to come out later, and we're going to be 2 years working with this book, and during that time, I might write some other bits. I might not, but I need to figure out how the approach, because you can't do a second autobiography. People do. I mean, some people are on their fifth, and they're only 25. Usually footballers.
They tell the story about every game.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. And the words get much bigger. And there's lots more spaces on the page, and the paper's really thick.
So, hey, thank you, Bruce, a lot for the interview, and best of luck for the future. Anything you want to say as last words to your fans and also to Iron Maiden fans coming to see you next May? You obviously have a new set coming up, so can we expect some surprises?
Well, of course you can expect surprises, but the one thing I will say is I'm really pleased with doing this indoors. We made a decision that we would try as much as possible to do indoor shows this summer. Obviously, there's a lot of festivals, so we can't do that 100%. But the main reason is because the show is, we've been designing the show for almost a year now, because Book of Souls was such a great show. We thought, wow, how are we going to beat this? So we've come up with something which I think is going to be pretty spectacular, and you definitely will not want to miss the beginning of the show.
Hey, thank you a lot.